and the management of the unit with a focus of development of strategic direction and managing the implementation of admission and enrollment activities to meet strategic services provided to the students throughout their matriculation. So Dean Campbell will be sharing some great information with you. Dean Campbell received his bachelor's degree in political science from Yale, his master's degree in higher education administration and student development from Boston College, and his doctorate in educational leadership from the University of Southern California. First, you will hear from Dr. Clay Gloster, and Dr. Gloster is the Dean of the Graduate College. He's also the interim Vice Provost for Research and Extended Learning and the Dean of the Graduate College. He has his BS in electrical engineering from here at A&T. He's an Aggie and received his master's in electrical engineering in the same graduate college that you are considering entering. And he received his PhD from NC State University. He has quite a few research interests that include reconfigurable computing, the development of software tools to allow scientists to benefit from the potential order of magnitude, speed up in execution time offered by configurable computing. Also, he has conducted great research in the area of technology-based curriculum development and distance education, which is very important at this time. So without further ado, we'll have a welcome from the Dean of the Graduate College, Dr. Clay Gloster.
Good morning. I would like to welcome you to this graduate information session for the Graduate College at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. I'm delighted to welcome you to your new home, A&T, the largest HBCU in the country. I'm delighted to welcome you home to A&T, the #1 public HBCU in the country as recognized by U.S. News and World Report. I'm delighted to welcome you home to A&T, who's third in UNC system in externally funded research grants, behind only UNC Chapel Hill and NC State. I welcome you to this information session on behalf of the more than 1,500 graduate students who matriculate at our illustrious institution. They are indeed the research engine of the university. Without our grad students, research, progress, and discovery would not be possible. There is no better time than the present for you to consider adding a graduate degree to your resume or to your CV. There is absolutely no better time than the present for you to increase your earning potential. There's no better time than the present for you to attend graduate school at A&T, where you'll receive individual attention and advanced knowledge. A&T is a community of academic excellence and positive action. Our vision for tomorrow is inspired by a proud tradition of visionaries, thinkers, and doers. We believe in what we will become because we believe in those who call themselves Aggies. You will find opportunity. You will push forward. You will succeed because that's what Aggies do. Once again, I'd like to welcome you to our graduate information session for today. Thank you.
Now we'll hear from Dr. Campbell.
Okay, thank you, Dean Gloster and Joe Frazier. Good morning. And once again, thank you so much for your interest in graduate studies at A&T. I'm going to try to share my screen with you as we transition to the next part on our agenda. And talk about how to successfully apply to graduate school. We're so excited to be celebrating. This is our 80th year of graduate education at A&T. And it's a great time, as Dean Gloucester just mentioned, to be thinking about pursuing graduate education. You've heard already what the agenda will entail. And so let's move right now into talking about successfully applying to graduate school with a view to A&T and the 80 years of graduate education that I just mentioned. It was in 1939 that A&T became authorized by the North Carolina State Legislature to offer graduate education with a master's degree in agricultural education. And then just 2 years later, Mr. Woodland Elroy Hall, who you see a photo of on your screen, became the first Aggie graduate degree awardee in 1941. He was an agricultural educational professional who became both a leading educator in his field in the state. And so to that effect, as we celebrate those years of the establishment of graduate education, we also look forward to continuing the trajectory that graduate education has continued to move forward in. As you can see, we're also celebrating now almost just over a quarter century of PhD education at the university, with engineering doctoral degrees that the university was authorized to offer. And then, as Dean Gloucester alluded to earlier, A&T in 2004 attained doctoral research university status, which is reflective of the high research activity that the university has been engaged in, which involves and relies on graduate students to attain that research university status. So again, a proud history and an exciting future that you can be a part of in looking towards applying to graduate studies here at A&T. So we want to talk a little bit in terms of successfully applying to graduate school about the importance of knowing the big picture. You know, there are just over 3 million graduate students that are enrolled in graduate programs across the United States right now. And then every year, over 2 million people like yourself are considering applying to graduate education, or do apply to graduate education. That's over 2 million people annually that apply to graduate school. Just over 16% of the population in the United States has a graduate degree. And so that's just reflective. Those numbers have gone up over the last quarter century and will continue to go up, as it's reflective of the importance of graduate education to participation in an increasingly knowledge-based economy. So understanding that big picture can be very helpful in terms of successfully applying to graduate school. So one of the first things to consider is knowing what the professional expectations are in graduate school. Unlike undergraduate education, graduate programs and faculty and staff in graduate programs, there are different expectations. There are largely expectations that you will be a lot more independent and a lot more self-driven in your pursuit of a graduate degree. And so it's really important to think about and understand that those are those are the expectations for graduate students coming into their graduate programs, that students are really going to drive their own education, and students are going to drive their professional development in that. And that's important because every graduate student's experience will be unique, and every graduate student comes with his or her own professional goals. So understanding what your own professional expectations are will be really important in terms of succeeding in graduate school and successfully applying to graduate school. Devoting the requisite amount of time in applying to graduate school. It can take as long as 12 months sometimes to prepare to apply. When you think about some programs that require standardized tests like the GRE or maybe the GMAT, it takes time to register and plan and practice for those exams, as well as maybe getting in line some of the other application requirements that we'll talk about later in this session. But it will involve taking and devoting the requisite amount of time to both successfully prepare and apply, and then not only preparing and applying, but also getting through graduate school. And then it's important to be relevant and specific in your application. So while we all know that there are many graduate schools out there, it's important to be selective about which graduate program and which institution you want to pursue and why. How does that institution's programs help meet your particular goals and your particular academic interests? Of course, you want to relay or relate the program to any specific skills or particular maybe professional capabilities that you have, to be able to talk about why that's a good fit for you in your application essay. You want to talk about maybe past experiences that you've had and how they're going to be again relevant to the program that you're interested in. And then you want to be proactive. So again, take time to research thoroughly the potential graduate programs if you haven't done that already, and be able to tailor your application to that school. What was it that specifically attracted you to these programs? What do you think you can contribute to the program as a graduate student and eventually maybe as an alum? So you can, nowadays it's very simple to access this information by getting on a program's website, but taking a look at campus events and blog posts and related information to really get an idea of how that particular graduate program's personality might fit you and your values. You want to develop an overall narrative when you're applying. So all of the application requirements, including the personal statement or statement of purpose, recommendation letters, resume, and so forth. You want to consider what each part of this application shows that you bring to the table and how that graduate program is going to help you achieve your particular goals. How do all these parts, for example, work together? Do they give a clear and consistent picture of what your goals are? And then, depending on what field you're applying to, you may want to balance the information in this overall narrative with a mix of both your professional experiences as well as some of your academic accomplishments. You want to show your personality and in a professional sense. So you'll be applying and basically speaking to admissions committees. And so that you want to be able to give them a sense of who you are and what it is that you value. You want to be able to show why you have a passion for the particular field that you're looking to enter into, and what you can contribute to it. Are there things that specifically challenge or that excite you about it? You want to be able to demonstrate that passion. Have you already been working in the field, for example, for some time? Are there contributions that you've made in this field through either previous academic research or maybe professional accomplishments through work experience? And do you have a clear idea maybe of how this particular program is going to help you after you have graduated? So those are the types of details that graduate programs like to see, and that you want to really think about in advance for having an idea of the big picture and how to successfully apply to graduate school. So one of the other key components in the application process is a record of your past academic achievement through transcripts. And here, when you're applying to A&T, for the admission process, unofficial transcripts are welcome, and they are all that's needed to receive a admission review. Official transcripts are not required until an applicant has actually been admitted. But it is important that unofficial transcripts from all colleges and universities that you've attended, that those be submitted with your application materials, so that basically the admissions committee and the faculty can get a clear sense of what your academic history has been. All of the transcripts, obviously in the with the pandemic, all of the transcripts can be submitted to A&T electronically. If there's a situation where you need to have it sent by mail, you may do so. The Graduate College is still receiving snail mail, and we'll process any transcript that does come through the mail. But you can always have your transcript sent electronically to the Graduate College. If you are an international, or if you have a university that you attended internationally, particularly in a country that where the instruction was not in English, those transcripts, of course, will have to be professionally evaluated by either the World Education Service or Education Credential Evaluators. The essay or the personal statement or statement of purpose is another key component in the application process, and it's important to take into account that this is a pretty critical piece for a successful graduate application. The essay should broadly speak to what your academic and professional goals are, and how you think how this program or the program that you're applying to is going to help you reach those goals. But there are a few considerations that we think might be important to highlight right now. The document should always focus on your accomplishments, again, either professionally or academically. You want to be able to show a proven track record of some success, and that provides the evidence for some of the claims that you're going to make about your capability to do advanced level academic work well. So you want to be sure to focus on those accomplishments. You want to be able to use specific examples. There's an old saying that a picture's worth 1,000 words, or tell a story that only you can tell. Those are good principles to keep in mind when you're using specific examples, again, to show what it is that you value and what are some unique contributions that you can make to a program. Graduate admission committees like to know that there's something that you can contribute as well as something that you can receive from the program, but they're also really interested to know what it is that you might be able to contribute. And so providing specific examples of maybe research programs that you worked on, or if there was volunteer experience that you've had that relates to the professional field. Those are great examples to be able to speak to. It's important to say why this particular program is of interest when you're writing and putting together your personal statement. Generally, programs have faculty with pretty specific research interests, and so it's important to speak to maybe individual faculty that you think are doing work in the research area, or connecting with particular organizations or agencies in your professional field that you think are unique, and that's what attracts you to the program. So being able to articulate what it is that's really specific about the program that you're applying to, you want to be able to articulate that. And again, addressing either past, present, or future research, and I would even add work experience for maybe individuals applying to master's degrees in professional fields. You want to be able to talk about those experiences, again, in not just articulating why you think the program is going to be good for you, but what it is that you can contribute to the program based on some past successes that you've had or accomplishments that you've had working with faculty in a lab, maybe as an undergraduate student, or maybe as a professional in your field, you have been engaged in some research with your company or with your organization. So again, talking about some of those contributions that you can have both from the past and how they will help you in the future. Maybe when you finish the graduate program, it's a great place to, the personal statement's a great place to speak to this. And then finally, just a few kind of technical considerations in the writing of the personal statement. You want to be sure not to use too much specialized language because, again, admission committees may be made up of multiple people who are not particularly as up to date or knowledgeable about technical, the use of technical phrases. So you want to, in a way, be able to relate specific interests that you have to a wider audience. And so avoiding the use of jargon or very specific technical language is always a good thing. And then, following directions. Generally, personal statements are between 500 to 750 words. If there is a word limit that's asked for, you want to make sure that you don't go over that. Because why? If an admission committee finds that an applicant has a difficult time following specific directions during the application process, it may send a message that you don't want to have when it comes to thinking about how you might perform as a graduate student in the program later on. So be sure to follow any page or word limits to give the right impression to an admission committee. So recommendation letters are very important, and at A&T, all of our graduate programs require a recommendation letter or recommendation letters from applicants. And so want to be sure with a few considerations here, how to set yourself up to successfully apply to graduate school, that you think about some of these considerations. Choosing recommenders who know you well is always a good first step. Selecting people who've probably worked with you closely and can speak very specifically to your strengths. These particularly should be either current or former professors that you have studied with, or professionals in your field who you've worked with, or maybe who have supervised you. Those are always good sources for recommendation letters. You always want to avoid using either family members or friends for recommendation letters. We talked about how over 2 million people apply to graduate programs each year. And so one of the best ways to set yourself apart is to have very good recommendation letters. And so objective and recommendation letters that come from those who can make an objective assessment and a strong assessment of your skills is always, a good way to approach getting strong recommendations. And speaking about that, you want to ask for strong recommendations by maybe setting up some time to meet with your recommender to discuss what your desire is to go to graduate school, so that they can have an opportunity to articulate in their letter what your interests are in going to graduate school. You might take some time to provide them with some of the past work that you've done with them. Maybe a paper that you wrote in the class if it was a couple of semesters ago or a couple of years ago, just to remind them about who you are, what your interests are. And then you can also even include a copy of your transcript or the resume in setting up the time to meet with them. But this gives, in individual meetings, which of course now can also be done online through media just like this, in Zoom or FaceTime even. When you take time to meet with your potential recommenders, it really gives them a chance and gives you a chance to assess whether they can give you a strong recommendation. And that's really what your objective is to make sure that you can receive a strong recommendation with your graduate application. And then finally, you want to be sure to give your recommender Generally, I would say, and some of the advice on the web will say at least 6 weeks. But another good way to think about it is you don't want your recommender to have to rush to write a recommendation. You want to be able to give them time well enough in advance to be able to include the most positive recommendation that they can when they're preparing your letter of recommendation. So we've just talked about some of the key pieces that involve successfully applying to graduate school. Another key question that many prospective students have is, how can I pay for graduate school? And so we just want to talk for a minute or two about some of the financial resources that North Carolina A&T State University has established for graduate students, and that these are resources that can help that can help enhance the professional development for students and give them the best opportunity to succeed both in graduate school and going forward. So what you'll see in the next few slides will really speak to A&T's commitment to providing funding for graduate students. We'll talk a little bit about broadly two different types of funding. The first one is called a fellowship. And as you can see here on this slide, a fellowship is a grant that's awarded to graduate students who are emerging scholars to support them in their pursuit of research. And you'll see some of our most distinguished fellowship opportunities. The Chancellor's Distinguished Fellows Program goes to some of our most outstanding prospective PhD students, as well as continuing PhD students. And you'll see a few others that are listed here. One that's also one of the newer ones is a fellowship program honoring Woodland Hall, who we learned about a little earlier in this presentation. That one is open to both PhD and to master's students. Fellowships, as you can imagine, are competitive, and they are awarded to really the most outstanding graduate students as recognized by their academic departments in the graduate college. Another key resource and financial resource that A&T offers are graduate assistantships. An assistantship is a part-time paid work experience in the graduate student's field of study, and it allows grad students to expand or to apply their discipline, knowledge, and skills under the supervision of a faculty member. Again, these are competitive awards made on a one-year basis. They can be renewable for continuing students. Generally, unlike the fellowship, the graduate assistantship does require work experience, usually supporting the academic teaching in an academic department, working as a graduate teaching assistant, or maybe working under the supervision of a faculty member in a laboratory as a graduate research assistant, or even working to support an administrative unit in some office at the university, maybe in student affairs, or maybe one of the academic units at the university as a graduate administrative assistant. For both the fellowships and the graduate assistantships, the way to apply for these is to apply for admission. It's the same application. And then departments will nominate their most outstanding newly admitted students for these awards. So as you can see, it's for those applying for this fall, the deadline has passed, but if you're interested in applying for a few beyond fall 2020, maybe fall 2021, you're nice and early, and you can take advantage of that February 1 deadline to try to qualify. This just lists a few of the other assistantships that I mentioned already. And there are, in addition, a few other financial resources and scholarships that are available. Some are need-based, and generally those are ones that would require a graduate, a student applying to graduate studies to also submit the FAFSA form, which you may be familiar with as submitting that as an undergraduate student. And there are some other smaller merit-based scholarships. More information is available on these scholarships, assistantships, and fellowships at the Graduate College's website. All of the resources, financial resources we just mentioned, are available at A&T, and they're specific to A&T. However, there are other external funding resources that are available outside of A&T. And as a prospective graduate student, you're encouraged to look at these resources, to consider these resources, which are similar in nature to the university-based fellowships and scholarships, but they are awarded by outside agencies or outside organizations. And so the application process for these external funding sources are somewhat similar to the application process for admission to graduate studies. Generally, applying for external scholarships involves turning in an online application, turning in recommendation letters, or even turning in a statement of purpose or a personal statement. The advantage to these types of awards is that they're portable, and that if you're awarded one from, say, example, the National GEM Consortium, that award is portable, meaning you can bring your award to A&T to support your graduate education at A&T. So we've got, this is a screen grab of just a few, excuse me, external funding agencies that provide graduate financial resources for graduate students. But we have several others that are also listed on our website, and I've put the URL here on this slide. So we've talked over the last few minutes just about successfully applying to graduate school, and we've talked a little bit about how to pay for graduate school. All those are key pieces. Know also that A&T is highly invested and highly resourced to help you not only get in and to get through, but to prepare you for the next level and to prepare you for success as a professional in your field after your graduate education. And so in the graduate college, we refer to this, this preparedness as the graduate student career readiness model. And what that really involves is A&T Graduate College believes that by the end of your graduate studies that you ought to be, and each graduate student ought to be, a well-rounded both scholar and professional. One that's ready to take their life and take their career to the absolute next level. And that in order to help you get to that point, the Graduate College provides a holistic framework of professional development that focuses on core competencies that are listed here on the screen, including career development, leadership and management, responsible conduct of research, teaching, communication. We think that by developing these skills across these core competency areas, graduate students will ensure that they're prepared for life after graduate school. There are various activities, workshops, and resources relating to these core competency areas that are available to all graduate students at North Carolina A&T State University each semester. Additionally, graduate students are given tools to track their goals and accomplishments in these areas through a guided online portfolio system. It's a great resource to help graduate students not only to think about and to work on career readiness while in graduate school, and not necessarily have to start on that at the end of their graduate program. And so to that end, students have the opportunity to engage in face-to-face workshops, self-directed online trainings and recordings, as well as one-on-one sessions designed to identify current career readiness strengths and to provide assistance in enhancing areas that might need further development. So you've got both the opportunity to work with faculty in your graduate program, but to also work through the graduate college on a variety of different learning and professional development opportunities that will help prepare you for success in your career after graduate school. So that will wrap up just a quick overview of successfully applying and getting into graduate school, and then preparing for career success after graduate school. I want to share with you very quickly a couple of exciting new developments with the graduate college and that relate to successfully applying. So we talked a little bit about money. There's never enough of it. Let's look at an important resource that's coming up in terms of getting your application maybe submitted for free. And all the information I'm going to share here is also available on the Graduate College's website, but it's something to look out for if you're applying for fall 2020. There will be a free graduate admission application to the first 50 eligible applicants who submit their application on the 22nd of June. So you want to take a look out for that. The requirements will include that you've got to have all of your application items and at least one completed recommendation. This is open to U.S. citizens and permanent residents who have at least a 3.0 GPA. 3.0 cumulative GPA is required. Want to make sure, again, check the Graduate College's website for more details on the on how to qualify for this, but it's really important to note that this is only this will work as a waiver, and so if, there will not be any reimbursement for applicants who pay a fee in advance, and that if you are not awarded, you're still responsible for the application fee. Again, everything I've just mentioned here. You're encouraged to look at the Graduate College's homepage for more details on the qualifications for this. But June 22nd is an important date where you may be able to qualify for to apply for free this year. And then there are a few new graduate programs. There are a few new graduate certificates that are being offered this fall 2020. And we've listed the areas that they're in here. There's a new graduate certificate in cybersecurity, one in data analytics, and then there's a new graduate certificate program in an interdisciplinary environmental certificate program with 4 different concentration areas there. These are exciting new programs that are open to students that are interested in applying and increasing their professional and their professional capabilities in these areas. So again, you want to go to the Graduate College's homepage for more details on that, or just give us a call or email, and we'd be happy to share more information about those programs with you. So that will conclude this part of the presentation before we move on to some question and answers. As I think Mr. Frazier mentioned, you want to be sure if you have a question that you'd like to type in, to send it to the Q&A so that BizNets and other Graduate College colleagues can help answer and respond to those. So I'll turn it back over now to Mr. Frazier, I think, who will help kind of MC and direct our Q&A session.
All right. So if there are other questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A session. Let's ask the first question now. Dr. Campbell, is the question asked about what are the innovations in the education space or leadership space that A&T has delivered or is poised to deliver?
Great, thanks for that question. So there are, in the College of Education, there are a few programs that relate to, graduate programs that relate to leadership in education. There's the PhD program in leadership studies. And there's also, for those in the, specifically in the K through 12 sector, the Master of School Administration program, for those that are interested in administrative leadership positions in K through 12. So we highly encourage you to hop onto the website and to take a look at those programs. The faculty would be, I'm sure, more than happy to speak with you about the curricula and about professional opportunities that that students that have been through those programs are finding currently in their work, in their professional work.
Okay, I'm looking for, please post any other questions if you have them about graduate college. Okay, the next question is about transferring. If you're wanting to transfer as a current grad student to NCA&T, what is the process? And it's two parts question. I will ask that one first and let you respond.
Okay. Yes. A&T graduate programs do consider transfer credit from other accredited universities. There's sort of two levels to that. The first level is first that the grades need to be at least a grade of B or higher, and those are courses that need to have been taken within. They need to be current. The university looks for those. The graduate college looks for those criteria first. The specific program that one is maybe applying to or transferring to, prospective students should have a conversation with the graduate coordinator in that program to determine how many of those credits might transfer. No more than 12 credits, and that usually works out to 4 classes, are available to be transferred. But it's important to talk to the program first about whether or not those courses might be available to count towards the degree program. Usually A&T wants to see that the course that was taken at another university, that it's the equivalent of a course here at A&T. And really the best way to do that is to have a conversation with the graduate coordinator of the program you're applying to while you're in the process of applying.
Okay, and we will provide some contact information at the end so you can get further information on that question. Another question, Dr. Campbell, is will the GRE need to be taken if the graduate GPA is over 3.0?
So for that depends on program. So for all of the PhD programs at the university, a GRE score is required regardless of GPA. I'll give an example. For example, the MBA program, that has a requirement of 3.3 undergraduate GPA to waive the GRE. And so it really varies by program. I've just spoken to probably 90% of the programs that do require a GRE, but those are generally program requirements for GRE. Many of our master's programs do not require a GRE. In fact, MBA is probably the most popular program that does require GRE or GMAT.
And if you have further questions, please email grad@ncat.edu. That's grad@ncat.edu. Another interesting question, can you name notable alum the graduate college is particularly proud?
Wow, that's a good question.
I know there are quite a few.
Yeah, I'm going to rely on my colleagues here, and as well as Dean Gloucester, to maybe kind of speak to that.
I'll just give a couple of quick ones. One is female astronaut Mae Jemison is one of those people, and the astronaut that flew in the Challenger mission, Ronald McNair, who the engineering college is named after. But there are quite a few notable alum if some of the other people want to jump in there.
Yeah, and particularly for my graduate college recently, there's a student by the name, Destiny Nook graduated from A&T, and she's currently a professor at Carnegie Mellon. So I mean, I'm just sharing. Jesse Jackson graduated from A&T, and there's many more.
Okay, the next question is, I'm interested in applying to the PhD in Leadership Studies program. Would you recommend taking the GMAT versus the GRE?
I can speak to that. Both are accepted by the program. I'm not an endorser of either. What I can say is GRE tends to be a standardized test that is more widely used. And so, the program will take either, but GRE tends to be more widely accepted. And so many prospective students tend to find that GRE, if I'm applying to multiple programs, more programs actually take the GRE, accept the GRE than they do the GMAT. But both are accepted.
Okay. Other questions, please answer them. So in distance learning and on-campus learning, can you speak to where A&T is in light of the current situation in the country, on campus and online? Can you tell us about A&T's perspective?
Yeah, the university does have had a plan and is now implementing that plan. I'm also going to defer this one to Dr. Gloucester. He's got the most. It's one that is evolving, but there's a lot of elements to it. Dr. Gloucester, would you like to speak to that one?
Yes, I would. A&T is planning for fall 2020. As everybody knows, the spring 2020, all courses went online. So we're planning for some life on campus in the fall. There will be approximately 50% of A&T student population on campus in the fall. That includes graduate students as well. We'll reach out to graduate students and undergrads to determine if they would like to come on campus. So we'll have a schedule where you'll have some face-to-face courses, some online courses, and some in a hybrid format where you may come to campus one day or out of the week and the other 2 days are online, etc. We'll have social distancing in place with the appropriate PPE and the like. So we're preparing to have some sense of life on campus in a hybrid format. We'll certainly offer many more online courses than we do traditionally, but there will be some face-to-face as well.
Okay, so you feel free to answer a few more questions, but as we do, will speak to some of the resources you have available to you. One is going to the university website, NCAT.edu, specific to the grad college. You can go to our informational page at TGC, the graduate college, tgcncat.info, that's .info, tgcncat.info, and you can get additional information. Also, you can go to social. This is tgc.info you're looking at. You can see about some of the financial advantages. You can see a few testimonials from students. You can also see about some of the programs, as well as state, your interest in the program. You can click to, find out more about the programs as well. Also, if you go to social.tgc.info, that's social.tgc.info, that takes you to the area that all the social networks are, and you can like us on Facebook, follow us on LinkedIn. You can also subscribe on YouTube. So take advantage of all those opportunities. So, and you can email the graduate college directly at grad@ncat.edu. That's grad@ncat.edu. We have a couple of additional questions. So please get your questions in. We're coming to a close very shortly. So one of the questions is, can you speak to research, nonprofit, and industry partnerships A&T utilizes to deliver the leadership studies PhD? Research, nonprofit, and industry partnerships. And this question, you may want to speak to that in general, but this question is about as it pertains to the leadership studies PhD.
Thanks for that question. I think just broadly speaking, I know that the program is actively and has students, is actively engaged with several students and faculty are connected with school districts, as well as nonprofit organizations, particularly those maybe in the health services area. That I think that would be a great question though to ask the program specifically about, and the graduate coordinator would be happy to help provide more information about those types of partnerships that the faculty have with corporations and organizations in the state and beyond. That information is on the graduate coordinator contact information is on our website. And I believe it's Dr. Crystal Gathers-Watley. She'd be happy to take some questions from you about that and provide you some of that information.
Okay, we have a question about the MBA program, and I would just mention that MBA has a communications portal. It's ncatmba.com. That's ncatmba.com, and you can go there and get further information. But this is a question about TOEFL. I'm not familiar with that one, but TOEFL, is it required for MBA admission? And the person says, I'm not a U.S. citizen, but have worked in the USA for more than 5 years. And it said on the graduate admissions section in the website that it was mentioned, but they are not sure that it applies for the MBA admission. So any
So there's a couple, yeah, I think that's the TOEFL language requirement.
Okay.
If you have an undergraduate degree or even another graduate degree from the United States, TOEFL won't be required. I think they're saying more than 5 years. They've been
They've
in the U.S.
worked,
They've
yes.
worked in the U.S. We would have to know, I think, a little bit about probably not. If you're a permanent resident at this point or resident alien, TOEFL wouldn't be requirement. So we'd have to know a little bit more, but if you fall into any of those categories, TOEFL wouldn't be required if you have a degree from a U.S. institution or your your residency status.
Okay. Okay, so the next question is, do your programs work with students that are also serving in the military?
Yes, absolutely. Several, several programs. The university also has an office of that supports military and military sports students who are in the military and even their dependents. So yeah, we have a number of graduate students who are in programs and those have completed programs. Many of our online programs have students from the military in them. The application fee may even be waived if depending on your military status, your current military status. So again, that information is on our website. We welcome our military and we thank you for your service.
Okay. Would a candidate need to manually apply for scholarships, or are they automatically applied for after applying?
As I mentioned, the application for assistantships, fellowships, scholarships, those are generally, the application for admission is that application. There are some fellowships where there's a specific application like the Title III or the Chancellor's Distinguished Fellowship that I referenced. That one does have its own specific application. And again, you can check our website for the deadlines on that. But the majority of assistantships, particularly, those are awarded based on nomination from the program after students are admitted.
Okay. So another question regarding the GRE. Would the GRE need to be taken for their application to be marked complete and be considered for acceptance for fall 2020s?
The answer to that is yes. We will take an unofficial GRE score. So if you've taken the GRE previously, you simply need to self-report your score, which will be sufficient, assuming everything else is turned in, to receive an application, to receive an admission decision. Okay.
I think you've answered this one, but we're just gonna, make sure here. The person says, I've submitted my application and paid the application fee prior to June 22nd. So that would not be refunded considering the offer that was made for June 22nd, correct?
That is correct. But we do thank you for your application. Yes, that is correct. The application fees cannot be refunded. The award piece that I did mention will be for students who do submit on the 22nd specifically. So if you submitted already, you're not eligible, but we do thank you.
Okay. If we have no other questions, just give you a few more seconds. Okay. They were great questions, no other questions. But please, if you haven't done so already, apply. If you have questions, see the university website. Also see the landing page or information page for the Graduate College, TGC, NCAT.info.